Okay, welcome to Math with Kim. I wanted to touch base on fractions. You've had the introduction, and now I want to explain to you how to read decimals, or in other words, write them in words, and also write a decimal as a fraction. These are very important skills to have, and they will come back at other times. So let's quickly go through this. Again, you would refer to the Intro to Decimals video if you don't already know how to read or understand the place values of decimals, okay? So let's go through this. This first decimal ends in the tenths place, okay? So we just read it as 7/10. And again, going with that basic information, we then just write that as a fraction, 7/10. Okay. And then we would reduce that fraction or simplify it if we could. But in this case, we can't. Okay. We've got a prime number that does not divide into our denominator. So this is in lowest terms. All right. So the next one, just read the number as if it doesn't even have a decimal. Okay. How would we read that? 55. But then we need to know where it ends, what place value. So remember, this is the tenths, this is the hundredths. So we would read this or write it in words as 55 hundredths. Okay? Then we would write that again as a fraction, 55 hundredths. But in this case, we can simplify our fraction, which I did. I reduced my fraction by dividing out the common greatest factor of 5. And there is my reduced fraction, okay? Now, the next decimal, again, we would just read this as the number 9. But what place value does it end in? Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So this is read or written as 9/10,000ths. And we would write it as 9/10,000, okay? And that's as simplified as we're going to get. This is read 4/100ths because it ends in the hundredths place. Again, to put our fraction 4/100, we would divide out their greatest common factor, which in this case is 4, right? And that would simplify. 4 divides into 4 once. 4 divides into 125 times. So 1/25 would be our simplified fraction representing this decimal. So this is how we read and write decimals, and this is how we write decimals as fractions, and then we reduce them. Okay, so let's try one example here at the top. So this is read as 43, and then where does it end? Tenths, hundredths. So this is read and written as 43 hundredths, okay? So 43, and then remember, no, it's not hundred, it's hundredths or hundredth, okay? And how would we write this as a fraction? Well, again, we would just take that 43 and we would put it over 100. And that is as simplified as this one can be. Okay, so that was how we write, read decimals, and write them as fractions in simplest form.